So I was talking about Have I Got News For You, and I've shown you how Have I Got News For You is based around an all-seeing eye. It's called Have I Got News For You. Ian Hislop, Private Eye, he is the editor of Private Eye, he is a Freemason. Now Boris Johnson is connected to this tsunami event that's coming, which is connected either to the asteroid or to La Palma, or even both. They could actually do both things at once. Now what's interesting is that, remember that in New York on 7/11, you had this warning that New York could suffer a nuclear attack, but they also said it could be down to a natural disaster. Now, in 7/11 Genesis, Noah is warned of the flood. Now, in 2004, December the 30th, Boris Johnson wrote this article for a newspaper where he ponders the tsunami in Indonesia. Now, remember that the tsunami in Japan was on 11/3, so that's 33 of Freemason. 11/3, so the 11th of March was the Japan tsunami. That's 33. Okay. Now Boris Johnson, he talks about tsunamis, and he talks about La Palma and about a meteor hitting the Earth and causing a tsunami. And he talks about the Indian Ocean tsunami, which I believe was man-made. And in it, he actually talks about how Noah rode out the flood in Genesis, and he quotes a passage from the book. And God saw that the wickedness of man was very great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And then he goes on to say how this is repeated in the Sumerian myths and the Greek myths. So Boris Johnson is there talking about the Great Flood and how Noah was warned. Remember, you had the warning on 7/11 New York, and I've shown how throughout my videos how there's going to be some kind of tsunami event that's going to affect New York. So he talks about Noah, the Greek myths, the Sumerian myths, and the flood. And then he talks about deep impact. So he talks about a meteor and how this will raise the sea levels. And he also warns about volcanoes, large volcanoes going off like the one in Sumatra. And he says how man cannot do anything about this, but these are actually man-made. And so he argues here that a chunk of the Canary Islands should be preemptively detonated in case of a landslip caused a tsunami to race across the Atlantic and destroy New York. Remember that Boris Johnson was born in New York. So he's giving you the warning of Noah in his article. He's actually warning. And he goes on to say how there could be an asteroid event. So he says it here. It may offend our species' sense of self-importance, but when a thunking great hunk of rock comes hurtling out of space to splat this planet like an egg, it's time to admit gracefully our number is up. And then he recounts the story of King Canute, how King Canute could not stop the tide wetting his feet, that man has only a certain amount of power. And what this is predictive programming about the coming event, which is a tsunami caused by a meteor, and maybe two events combined into one. And you have this constant reference to tsunamis with Boris Johnson, where he is the media are constantly repeating the word tsunami, tsunami, tsunami. Even when he got, when the MPs rose against him, they say that it was a tsunami of opposition against Boris Johnson. So they're constantly repeating this because, as I say, if you look at the Economist catastrophe, there's something connected to La Palma. Remember that last year, on September 11th, is when you had the earthquake swarm in La Palma. 9/11, 7/11. Okay? Thank you.